Hi everyone, welcome. In this series of talks, we're going to be exploring the concept of time. It's so important to our construct of happiness and satisfaction in our lives, but what does it really mean? And it was through my meditation practice where we talk about being in the present moment that I began to explore this concept of time. So let me share with you some of the research and see if it resonates with you. Did you know that the word time is the most used noun in the English language? There are over 90 different uses for it, such as high time, low time, no time, good times, bad times, face time, crunch time, a stitch in time. It goes on, which just goes to show how critical it is to our lives. But we don't really understand time that well. So today we're going to look at it from 5 different angles. We're going to start with intellectual time, which is our most accessible concept of time. It's measured by watches and clocks, minutes and hours, days and years, and it's really a universal understanding of time. Then we'll look at biological time, which is subconscious and very, very individualistic. Scientists have shown that we have many, many clocks inside our bodies, following the circadian rhythm from day to night. So we'll explore it down to the protons and neuron level. Then we'll look at emotional time, which is so much of how we understand happiness and sadness. And then we'll look at time travel. So scientists are doing a lot of exploration around this, and we have many movies and books that talk about time travel from a fantastical level. But as I said, scientists are really exploring it through quantum physics in a very scientific way. And so even though I'm not a scientist, I'll share some of their investigations with you because it's just incredibly fascinating. So as I said, today we'll look at intellectual time. And again, we have devices that frame time and we measure it very exactly and everyone understands it. But not only can that make things easier for us where we all understand it, but it can also make things harder when those expectations and understandings are confused or not met. So a little bit from a historical perspective, Egyptians were the first ones to measure time around 1500 BC. They used a shadow clock or a sundial. And then there were incense clocks and candle clocks and of course the hourglass. In the Middle Ages, time was told by clock towers, and it was different from town to town. So once train travel was invented, there had to be a more synchronized and universal understanding of time, and so they introduced standard time or Greenwich Mean Time. That was in the 1860s. And then America actually finally adopted it in 1918. So here it is, 2020, and we've come a long, long way in a little over 100 years, and now we have atomic clocks that can measure time accurate within a second of 100 million years. Yet, I'm not sure we have a better understanding of what time is. We do have devices, and we frame so much of our lives around those devices. We wear watches and clocks and computers, and everything is so speeded up, but that doesn't necessarily mean things are getting better. So the idea is we have now expectations, extremely high expectations around how long things should take. So we have Google Maps that'll tell us exactly how long our drive will take. We have computers that say we can process, page loads within under a second. So we have very, very high expectations around how long things should take, and that can cause a lot of pleasantness or unpleasantness depending on our expectations. So if our drive to work only takes 20 minutes instead of 30, then we're quite happy. And if the email gets answered within a day, which we expected, then that's great. If a project launches on time, that's wonderful. If our date arrives for dinner on time. But as we know, we can't really control that. And so very often our drive takes longer than we think. The email isn't answered. The project doesn't launch. Our date is late. And so we end up getting quite frustrated and angry. And then those kinds of frustrations, and they build over the day, these little pieces of anger and frustration, and it can end up being just a very, very unpleasant mood by the end of the day. So the idea is, as things are even getting more sped up, can we control how we think about these things? So there's a wonderful book called Solve for Happy. It was written by Mo Gaudat, who was the chief business officer of Google X, which is their think tank. But he was also a successful entrepreneur and engineer at Microsoft, and very, very happily married family man with 2 children. So after he had set up his life and he thought everything was perfect, by a complete random accident, his son died on the operating table. And it really shattered his expectations and worlds. And so he spent quite a lot of time thinking about what is happiness. And he gave up his corporate career and he started a movement called Solve for Happy. And he gave a series of talks at Stanford University where he explained his theories and how much we have control over and not. And he has a very simple statement for what happiness is, an equation, which is that happiness is the events in your life minus your expectations around those events, which I think is really true. And he says we really only have 2 things that we have any control over, and they are our attitude and our actions. And so the idea is, can we bring that kind of awareness to our expectations for how long things will take, and not be so reliant on these devices, these mechanical devices that measure time within millions of a second. Things take time, and they'll take as long as they take, and very often we can't do very much about it. And so we don't have to let it frame a construct for our happiness or unhappiness. And can we understand that these devices have an external understanding and an external value for us, but they do not have to impact us on our day-to-day lives. And we can use our awareness and presence of mind to stay calm and happy, so that when we're online and at the grocery store and our line is moving slower than someone else's line, can we just take a breath and be in the present moment? Or if someone cuts us off and we spend an extra 5 minutes in the traffic going to work, can we think of something wonderful that happened to us that day? Can we think of a song that makes us happy? Can we just change our attitude and expectations around how long things will take? So that doesn't have to be something that impacts us in a negative way. It's not easy, but it's really quite simple. You just have to practice it. So with mindfulness, we can bring that to every moment and to those expectations. Well, I'll provide links to the Mo Gaudat talk in his book. And in the next class, we're going to look at biological time. Hope you'll join me. Thanks very much.